Alright, hello. Welcome to my reaction video of the Republican primary debate for governor that was held on Monday. I'm reacting 2 days later, but you know what? Pine Power LI reacted to the Democrat one, so now I'm going to react to the Republican one. So, first, let's mute Maurice Dubois for just a second, because I don't want to hear him ramble on. And I'm just going to basically introduce you the candidates at the moment. So this is former Westchester County Executive Rob Astorino, who was the Republican gubernatorial nominee in 2014 who lost to Andrew Cuomo. This guy right here, he is Harry Wilson. He's a former police sheriff who, honestly, I didn't even know who he was until Monday. So I don't even know why he was invited, which doesn't make any sense. This is Congressman Lee Zeldin from Suffolk County, Long Island. And this is the son of former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Andrew Giuliani. So, without further ado, I want to mention one last thing that Maurice did bring up. Look how pathetic this is. This is discrimination. The fact that they didn't put Andrew Giuliani on the actual stage because he wasn't vaccinated, because apparently CBS, loves to discriminate. The Supreme Court's too fascinated with Roe versus Wade right now. They should have been at least focused on, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and who's that other justice? I keep forgetting his name. The third Trump-appointed one. Gorsuch. Yeah, that guy. They should be focused on helping people go back to work federally instead of fascinating on Roe versus Wade right now. I mean, this is just ridiculous, but hey, that's what their priorities are right now. We have more bigger things to worry about. And you're going to see how corrupt CBS is in just a second, because this is how corrupt the media is nowadays. The fact that they lead off with a question that most people don't even care about right now. So here's the first question that Maurice Dubois asked the candidates. And I will mention that I have my headphones on. I was able to fix the technical difficulties that I was having earlier. So let's watch the first question, because this is just pathetic.
Turn off the microphones if they
are
here we go. Seated. With that, let's get right to the questions. And the first one is for Mr.
And by the way, before we continue, if you want to watch the tape of this debate yourself, I will have the link in the description below from CBS New York.
Giuliani. The hearings are underway, as you know, sir, in Washington on the attack on the Capitol in January of 2021. What, if any, role do you...
So the fact that they lean off of January 6th is just ridiculous. The fact that they're already pushing the narrative on the 2024 election is ridiculous. All right, we're trying to figure out who's going to be our governor next year. And the fact that you got this question being asked, they never even asked the Democrats that question last week. So it just shows how corrupt the media is.
Do you think former President Trump played in the riot? And do you believe Donald Trump should run for president in 2024?
Well, first and foremost, let me thank all the New Yorkers for tuning in tonight. And I also want to thank all the New Yorkers for all the support that I've heard over the last 48 hours. I was very honored, Maurice, to work 4 years in President Trump's White House. I've known him for over 20 years. I consider him a good friend. And I would certainly support him if he decided to run for president. The media has been fixated on January 6th for the better part of a year and a half now. And I would like to see a congressional hearing on the 274 riots that happened between May of 2020 and January 5th of 2021, rather than just one day where the media is...
Exactly. Do we hear about any congressional hearings about the Black Lives Matter protest that happened in Manhattan in late May of 2020 or the earlier part of June of 2020? The fact that we had people rioting near Washington Square Park, the fact that Midtown, it was basically almost destroyed because of these animals? No. You don't hear Washington investigating Black Lives Matter. And the fact that they don't even want to investigate Antifa in Portland 2 years ago just shows how corrupt the media is. And the fact that, again, the riots that also happened in Minneapolis after George Floyd was killed, you see Congress investigating that? No. So, again, I'm glad Andrew Giuliani at least denounced this question as soon as he was asked it.
Completely focused on. I think President Trump was a great president, and honestly, I'm hopeful that he runs again. I would be honored in any capacity, certainly as governor of New York, to work with a president that was as effective as he was, and that's the kind of change.
Okay, I will admit, I was a little bit annoyed with how Trump was slowing down the stimulus and the fact that, okay, maybe we did take Trump for granted. Maybe we did. Maybe because we were so naive and not realizing that putting Biden in was going to fix our problems really didn't, help us. It just hurt us. So, there is a real possibility that Donald Trump could run for president again in 2024. And especially because, mind you, this time, 2 years ago, gas was $2 a gallon. So, at this point, defending Trump may be the best thing right now. Because the economy was in much better shape. Alright? I understand unemployment was up. But before that, from 2017 till 2019, the United States economy basically was like the Ronald Reagan era. So, let's keep that in mind.
That he brought to the United States of America that we need to bring to New York.
Same question, Mr. Zeldin.
President Trump told his supporters to go peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. And if President Trump wants to run, he should run. And I believe that he'll be the Republican nominee and he'll win. Now, never Trump or Harry Wilson, who's here, refused to vote for Donald Trump in the 2020 election against Joe Biden. Look.
So basically, he attacked Sheriff Wilson. Okay. But keep in mind that if you play that video of Trump on January 6th of last year saying, "In a few moments, you're going to peacefully march on over to the Capitol to make your voices heard." Alright. What really happened was a bunch of lunatics got crazy because, they were just upset that their voices weren't being heard the right way. Okay. But I watched the tape numerous times, over and over again off of YouTube, of Trump on that day, on January 6th of last year. Donald Trump never meant to incite an insurrection. The goal on January 6th last year was to peacefully protest outside of the U.S. Capitol building. Alright, that was the whole goal. But no, we're gonna focus on the bad. Okay, it was a dark, depressing day for our country's history. And okay, we did lose a Capitol Police officer on that day. We'll never forget his memory. But the fact that, again, the corporate media of CBS is focused on January 6th just shows, again, they're trying to make the Republicans just look bad.
How we are now as a nation. I believe that we're battling for the heart and soul of our country. And it's not just the Democrats, but it's the rhinos like Harry Wilson who are out there making sure that we have this moment in time with one-party Democratic rule in Washington, D.C. As far as what we're seeing with these hearings, Nancy Pelosi...
And by the way, I voted for Trump in 2016.
...to be on this committee. And I believe that it's important for us to be focusing on the illegal immigrants coming across our southern border, the fentanyl that's coming across, the human trafficking, the labor trafficking, the drug trafficking, our nation's foreign policy, the supply chain crisis, inflation. It is important for us to be focusing on the issues that Americans are saying are the most important issues to them.
That's a great answer, Lee Zeldin. Thank you very much. I wasn't really happy with Andrew's answer just there, so this is what we need right now to help unify the Republican Party right now.
where Congress should be spending their time right now.
Mr. Zeldin, thank you. Mr. Wilson, one more time. What, if any, role do you think former President Trump played in the riot, and do you believe he should run for president in 2024?
So, Mr. Dubois, I'm going to answer your question. I'm also going to respond to Mr. Zeldin's dishonest attacks. So, first, I believe people have responsibility for their own actions. The people who broke the law should be prosecuted to the fullest extent in any illegal activity, and they have responsibility for the.
Does that apply to Mr. Trump?
No, the people who broke the law by invading the Capitol. Mr. Trump did not invade the Capitol. So the people who broke the law by invading the Capitol should be prosecuted, and that's where the responsibility
I
lies.
definitely
The people
agree.
actually broke the law.
All right.
If Mr. Trump chooses to run for president in 2024, I do believe he'll be the nominee, and he'll make that decision in due time. Now, Mr. Zeldin is going to go on to a series of attacks. You saw him even before I had a chance to speak, just like he started attacking me before I ran my campaign. It's because he's scared, because he's a broken candidate. Now, let's look at the facts. I am a Reagan conservative. I have been one since I was a little kid. My dog is named Dutch Reagan. My daughter's middle name is Reagan. Okay, I have fought for
I am not
conservative
happy
principles my
with
whole
this
life.
guy. He's
From
basically
a college
bragging.
Republican to running for state controller when I was a 2010 nominee, and I won more votes and got closest to winning statewide than any Republican in the last 20 years, running on the most fiscally conservative platform in my lifetime. That is not what Mr. Zeldin is trying to do. Why is he doing this? Because he will do anything and say anything to distract from his terrible record as a Cuomo clone, which defines his time in Albany.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Astorino, what, if any, role do you think former President Trump played in the riot? Do you believe he should run for president in 2024?
Well, look, January 6th was a horrible day in our nation's history. It was horrible to watch, and it's a stain on our country. I do think he bears some responsibility. I think most people would say that, look, we've got to move on, though. I mean, these hearings right now are complete and utter political theater in Washington, D.C.
Exactly. Liz Cheney's dividing our country.
We need to start looking towards 2022 this year. That's why I'm running for governor. Our state is in a crisis right now. Our country is an utter mess with President Biden. And what happens in 2024, the party will figure that out, whether President Trump wants to run or not. But we've got great candidates if he doesn't run, in Ron DeSantis, and I can go down through the whole list. So for me, I'm running for.
Well, everybody just assumes that Ron DeSantis is going to be the nominee, but, you know, I can think of 4 other Republicans that are going to likely run in 2024, and I'm going to name the other 4 right now. Most likely, if I had to pick somebody who is going to run, will likely be former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, in terms of the other 3 Republicans who I do see running, I definitely see 2 governors running, Chris Christie and then Larry Hogan. And then, of course, you got Ted Cruz. Now, is Ron DeSantis thinking about running? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I think most likely, if Donald Trump decides not to run, you definitely do see Ron DeSantis running. Now, if Donald Trump decides to attempt something that hasn't been done since Grover Cleveland, then, all right, then DeSantis backs off. And then my theory again goes with the 2 governors, the former vice president, and then the senator from Texas. So that's the way I look at the 2024 field right now. So Rob Astorino really didn't think of those candidates.
For governor, because this state is a mess. And yes, Lee Zeldin had his time in Albany when he was in the Senate majority under Dean Skelos. And yes, he sided with Andrew Cuomo. He was a reliable vote for Andrew Cuomo the entire time. So he did have his chance, and he blew it. And that's another reason why I'm running, because I ran in 2014, and everything has just gotten worse.
Thank you.
But you lost in 2014.
Can I rebut?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Notice that Never Trumper Harry Wilson didn't deny the fact that he refused to vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. Now, as far as what we're seeing with these constant lies from Never Trumper Wilson and Rolex Rob, is that they claim that I had supported Andrew Cuomo. I actually endorsed the Republican against Andrew Cuomo every time in 2010, 2014, 2018, and led the call for his prosecution.
And it was a mistake not electing Mark Molinaro 4 years ago.
I brought him into my area. I helped introduce him to voters, but he wants to be governor. Listen, he's on a losing streak. He has now lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices. He'll say anything he possibly can for votes. The Cuomo attack is ridiculous, and I supported him against Cuomo in 2014.
All right, so I fast-forwarded a large part of this segment about gun laws because, again, you know, the fact that, again, let's draw how corrupt CBS is for just a second, okay? The fact that you're making them answer questions on gun laws is completely ridiculous. And again, this is CBS 2. This is CBS overall being corrupt, as usual. Where, again, do I care about any of this stuff? Do most New Yorkers care about these gun laws right now? Not really. No. You know, shame on you, CBS 2. Shame on you. So, this is the most important part that, you know, Lee Zeldin was talking about right here. Watch this.
We should repeal cashless bail.
Exactly, we should repeal bail reform. I've been saying it now for 2 years.
We should fire DAs like Alvin Bragg, who refuse to enforce the law.
Yes. Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg. Oh, we know him very well. Yeah, this guy needs to be fired. All right, Alvin Bragg is a disgrace. The fact that right now in California, with their recall laws, you know, none of the candidates talk about having a recall law. The fact that in New York, we don't have a recall law, beyond astonishes me to think that California almost recalled Gavin Newsom last year. I mean, this guy should be thrown out immediately. But does this woman care that Alvin Bragg is just going to not enforce the law in Manhattan? This woman right here, who we're all trying to stop in November? No. Not at all. Not at all. Look at her. Look how this woman shows no emotion. She doesn't. Kathy Hochul is a joke. Alright, and the fact that she's basically a female version of Andrew Cuomo right now, you know, the proof is right there. Alright?
Trumper Harry Wilson donated to the campaign of liberal Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg.
We should
wow, that's interesting.
Your time is up. Mr. Giuliani, same question. I'm sorry?
Sounds like I'm missing some fireworks over there, but I have to tell you,
that's a good rebuttal.
I think about the Second Amendment, and I think about this debate, and I think about what Governor Hochul has done. She has continued to encroach on New Yorkers' Second Amendment rights rather than empowering the police. Look, Marcia, we need to end this war on our police. I heard one of the other candidates invoke broken windows, invoke stop, question, and frisk. We need to utilize programs that take New York City specifically and that we can do for the state. From 2,000 murders a year in the early 90s to less than 600 murders a year just 5 short years later,
so Mr.
and then
Giuliani,
less than 300 murders a year.
Are you saying we should go back to the programs that your father instituted, broken windows, and stop questioning?
Let's see if he answers it.
Yes, I am, Marcia, clearly, and I look at it this way. When you look at when stop, question, and frisk in the late 90s, when we were between 70 and 100,000 stops a year, every single year the Justice Department ruled it constitutional. You know who did that as Deputy Attorney General? Eric Holder, believe it or not. It's when the quota system came in the 2010s, when we were stopping 700,000 people a year.
Your time is up,
it might have gotten out of
Giuliani.
control. So we absolutely need to end this war on cops and allow proactive policing again.
Mr. Astorino wants to rebut.
Well, I'm a concealed.
Well, that's a good way to stun down Maurice Dubois and Christine Johnson right there. I will give him credit. But the bottom line is, and I'll just say this about Andrew Giuliani, he's inexperienced. And that's what I don't like about him. Now, keep in mind that when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, and as you hear the sirens, you know, this is what Andrew talks about. The war on our police. I mean, they're not allowed to do their jobs right now. But when Donald Trump was running for president, everybody knew who he was. He was this big shot real estate guy who was commenting about politics when Obama was president. he contemplated running against Obama in 2012, and, you know, the fact that I don't trust Andrew because of his, you know, inexperience, the fact that he's never dealt with foreign countries before, the fact that Trump made real estate deals with foreign countries before he was president of the United States, you know, I'd rather would have somebody who knows a lot about dealing with foreign issues. The problem is, I feel that Andrew has never dealt with foreign countries in any position he's ever been in. Okay, I'm going to serve Donald Trump as a associate. Like, how does that help you when Lee Zeldin's been a multi-term congressman who has talked about countries ripping us off before? You know, honestly, I just feel that Andrew Giuliani scares me to think that if he becomes the nominee, God forbid, I hate using that term, but if Andrew Giuliani becomes the nominee, you know Kathy Hochul's getting a full 4 years. So keep that in mind.
A carry permit holder, and if I walked into the Bronx from Yonkers, let's say, I could be a felon overnight. And where I would need it the most, because of this defund and defame the police movement, I would become a felon because you're not allowed it in New York City, which is utterly insane. You know, Lee talks about the SAFE Act. You're right.
Oh, boy.
But the problem is, you have funded it every single year when you were in Albany. Cuomo said, do this. You said, okay, no problem. And all the junk in the Cuomo budgets, including the SAFE Act, you funded. So when you
oh, what a way to disrespect a former soldier in the military. What a way to disrespect him, Rob.
About the Unsafe Act, you're correct. But you were part of the problem because you were part of the status quo in Albany.
And Marcia, I get the first rebuttal because Mr. Zeldin's attacked me twice.
This is very disrespectful to an Iraq War veteran. Very disrespectful.
Go ahead.
So let's be clear. What's happened, let's look at the facts. In 2010, Mr. Zeldin and I campaigned together. In the years since, he has asked me multiple times to run for statewide office. In January of this year, he asked me to be on his ticket.
Oh, boy.
Now, why is he dishonestly attacking me now? Because his campaign is disintegrating. He is spending illegally because he has spent all of his primary cash, and he knows he is flailing. So he's attacking the biggest threat because we're surging right now. The reason we're surging is when people know about our turnaround plan to fix New York State.
I don't even know who you are.
It's not some career politician who failed us in Albany for 4 years, but someone's going to come in after 30 years of fixing broken companies, turn Albany upside down, and make it work for the voters and taxpayers of the state, just like I've done in company after company. That's the skill set we need in Albany, not another.
You're a no-name that nobody knows who you are.
Failed Albany politician.
Yeah, I mean, I never asked, and I wouldn't ask never Trump or Harry Wilson.
January 12th, you did. I've got the notes from that conversation. Don't lie.
Don't lie. Okay, that is a 0% chance, but as far as
100% chance you did.
I wouldn't want you to serve as lieutenant governor. I asked Allison Esposito, commanding officer and deputy inspector of the 70th precinct.
Stop lying.
She was 24 years along a career in the NYPD. She would have become an NYPD chief. Her father was an NYPD chief.
She was the 15th person you asked, and you know it.
I mean, this guy doesn't stop.
Oh, boy.
You're wrong on the wrong debate stage, man. You should be debating whole.
And this is ridiculous. They never turned off Harry's mic. Harry Wilson's mic should have been turned off.
Hochul and Williams and
will in the general
Suozzi,
election.
you should be on the Democratic Party primary debate stage right now. Now, as far as what Astorino stated,
you need to become a private citizen and not even become a politician right now.
he knows this. There's nothing in that budget that funded the SAFE Act. I opposed the SAFE Act every step of the way. I co-sponsored the bill to repeal it. I spoke at Pro 2A rallies against the SAFE Act.
This is just a rude way to disrespect.
Listen, I don't mind taking on all three of you here tonight, and I'm looking forward to taking on and defeating Kathy Hochul in November. But you can sort, they figure you out, Never Trumper.
Oh, boy.
They figured you out that you worked twice for as an
Man, look at Lee Zeldin attacking this no-name sheriff. This is entertainment right here. Sean Hannity's probably enjoying this.
Mr. Wilson, has gun violence or crime ever personally impacted your life? And if so, how? And has it changed?
I don't even want to watch this part. I don't. No. What we should be focusing on right now is the economy. That's what we should be focusing on right now. Not this agenda that CBS News is pushing on us.
Targeted. We have to combat
So
all
let's watch
of this
the
raw, violent hate.
part.
Thank you.
So the next
About
question goes to
the
you,
economy.
Mr. Giuliani. Everyday New Yorkers are feeling the pinch of the economy, rising prices for food, gas, just about everything.
Exactly.
And they're affecting the family pocketbook.
You know what's a joke? You know what's a joke? Try going to a 7-Eleven in Queens right now, where both the soda, the 20 ounce for an example, the Diet Dr. Pepper, and a bag of Doritos is $2.29. That's almost $6. $6! Alright? Alright, let's pull the calculator up and let's just do an example of how bad this is. Now, I don't want to put the deposit on because I'm just going to eliminate that right now because we're just going to do it without sales tax and just see how much the exact price is for both a bag of Doritos and a 20-ounce soda bottle right now. Let's just go with my normal Diet Dr. Pepper. How much is it? There we go. $4.58. That's almost $5. You know how much it should cost me right now? You know how much it should cost me? So before this nonsense, all right, let's go back to March of 2020. I was paying $2.09 at 7-Eleven. Let's add, yeah, I think it was $1.49 before COVID. This is how much I was paying. $3. I would literally have $3 on me, 3/4 singles on me most cases, and I don't afford it. So, this is what affects me right now. The fact that I have to go to the other side of Bayside just to get 2 bags of chips for $2 even, it literally shows that, again, you know, CBS didn't prioritize the economy first. And, you know, this is what little Marcia Kramer thinks right here. Let's zoom into little Marcia Kramer. Let's zoom into her. Let's see, can I erase everything? Okay, there we go. Right, this is Marcia Kramer, who is too focused on a liberal agenda right now. Right? So let's just see how they ask the candidates about the economy. Let's watch this part.
What can you do as governor? What can you do as governor to bring some relief?
Well, how amazing a difference it's been over the last 2 years, Marcia, when we were looking at $2 a gallon gas, and now New Yorkers this winter, they have to make the tough decision between filling up their fridge and heating their home, and it really is terribly sad. I think...
You know, that's a very good point that Andrew Giuliani brought up, the fact that it's going to cost a lot more this winter to get natural gas or oil to heat your home this winter. It may cost a lot more.
First and foremost, from an energy standpoint, what we can do, I'm answering the question here, Marcia. I think what I can do first and foremost is we can tap into the Marcellus Shale and specifically the energy and make New York truly the best fracking state in the country. We have that ability to do that here in the state of New York. We need to make sure that we're doing everything, not just to say that we're going to reignite New York, but really do it. And that starts with energy here. It also starts with maybe competing more with the likes of Florida, of Texas, and Tennessee from a regulatory standpoint as well as from a tax standpoint. You know, when I think about New York, we're competing with California to be the highest tax state in the country. That's going to continue to push job creators and businesses down to Florida.
Mr. Zeldin.
Well, I'm in complete agreement. You know, the income tax is too high in New York. The fact that, you know, our sales tax is 8%, you know, thank goodness we're not as bad as Tennessee. They have the worst sales tax of any other state in the country right now. But the fact that, you know, property taxes are another problem. The fact that Long Island's paying the most ridiculous amount of property tax in the entire country right now. The average property tax in Nassau County is $12,000. $12,000. In Newcastle County, Delaware, the average right now, and you're going to laugh your pants off, is $4,000. Yeah, I kid you not. $4,000 for the average property tax, and I guess I'm going to go with Wilmington. If you go north of the city and go along Route 202 with all the retail in the Concord section of Wilmington, you can easily get $4,000-$5,000 property tax a year. So none of these candidates realize that we're competing with Delaware, a nearby state that's actually seeing an increase of population of New Yorkers.
Same question.
We have to reverse the ban on the safe extraction of natural gas in the Marcellus and Utica shales. The southern tier is desperate for it. There are other counties that want it. It would allow us to create jobs and generate revenue and revitalize communities and to be able to drive down energy costs. There's also pipeline applications right now up in Albany collecting dust, being delayed, denied. Instead, they should be getting approved. If we move forward with this, and we have to cut spending in this state, there's so much wasteful spending, tens of billions of dollars worth it. I have a plan that would provide the largest tax cut in the history of the state of New York. For Broome County alone, I heard that the estimate was $2 billion in economic development for a county desperate for it. Meanwhile, for the next act of one-party Democratic rule in Albany, they want to have a statewide ban on the hookup of new construction for gas. That's wrong. We saw it in New York City. It's wrong if they want to do it statewide. I feel like we have a great opportunity here, but we have to reverse that ban on the safe extraction of natural gas.
Mr. Astorino next up.
Yeah,
Same
so
question.
Definitely, New York is blessed with natural gas. We should be safely drilling it and making sure that it's provided for everyone who needs it in New York and in our country. Nuclear option, that's two. Indian Point was closed in Westchester, and that was 25% of our energy.
Yes, we should reopen Indian Point.
Plants throughout New York
Why did
State.
Cuomo close it?
And they're good for the environment. But we should have an all-of-the-above approach with energy. You know, look, as Westchester County executive, I had to work every day to help create jobs, and 44,000 were created in Westchester when I was there. I went right to work on the budget. We had a big deficit. We cleaned that up. $1.8 billion was the budget when I walked in the door, and it was 1.8 when I left. That is fiscal conservatism. That allowed us to actually cut property taxes and never raise them. Imagine if they had done that in New York State, we'd be much better. But no, the Republicans in the Senate majority at the time under Dean Skelos and Lee Zeldin, just went with the Cuomo budgets. And so the train kept going on the track. So today, the budget went from $178 billion to $220 billion, and everyone is leaving New York because nobody can afford it. So here's what I'm going to tell you, folks.
Exactly. I
way.
can't
I've had
afford
to do
being
this
in the
past,
state.
and I will do it again. We will make sure that New York is more affordable for everybody because nobody can afford it anymore. The middle class, the working class, they're getting clobbered every single day.
Mr. Wilson.
And the disabled are too.
That's why it's one of the three
senior
key pillars
citizens
of my
as
turnaround
well,
plan for the state of New York, along with
retirees.
the biggest tax cut in history, and making New York safe again through our anti-crime plan. Specifically on the cost of living, most people who don't follow state policies closely don't realize how much of the cost of food, energy, and housing is driven by bad Albany regulations. So I agree with my colleagues here on the need to expand our energy supply and an all-of-the-above energy policy, and that will help on utility bills, okay? But 48 cents of a gallon of gas is driven by taxes from Albany. Only 16 cents has been waived for a short period of time. On food and things like regulations coming out of Albany that have driven up the cost of milk and shut down well over 1,000 dairy farms in the state that have had direct implications for consumers across the state. So much of this bad policy is driven by Albany. In my turnaround plan, I am focused on doing three things. We will cut 20% of income taxes and property taxes for every person in the state. We will repeal all the regulations that drive up the cost of food, energy, and housing. And combined, Mr. Estrino went way over. Combined, those things will be $3,000 to $5,000 a year in the pockets of middle-class families, a total game changer. And combine that with our climate plan, that's the essence of our turnaround plan.
Doesn't that sound a little bit suspicious that they were favoring Rob Astorino there?
For the state.
Mr. Zeldin, just a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, first off, Rolex Rob again was making a false claim. I never voted for the Cuomo budgets. Actually, what happened was the Senate Republicans passed our own budgets every single time I was there, self-imposed spending cap, and then we reached a three-way agreement. Now, what he didn't tell you about his time as Westchester executive.
And by the way, just for the record, if I was in the New York State Senate believe me, I would be drafting a budget too. Whatever Hochul or Swazi or Williams was ever thinking, you know I would never vote for it. Why would I vote for a budget that wouldn't even repeal bail reform? Explain that. But no. Everybody wants to point fingers.
Is that the deficit went up, the debt went up, the cash reserves went down, the bond rating went down, and the sewer fund owed tens of millions of dollars to the general fund. He was run out of town when he ran for re-election in 2017, just like he was run out of town when he got crushed in Westchester running for state senate in 2020.
I know you want to respond. Go ahead.
I certainly do.
I think Rob is going to respond here.
County, and I will cut taxes in New York State. I know how to do it because I've actually done it. Go to my Twitter feed right now and see the proof. Lee Zeldin just told the biggest whopper ever that he didn't vote for the Cuomo budgets. Cuomo submits the budget, the executive submits it, and the legislator voted for it. So for him to say that he didn't go with the agenda of Andrew Cuomo, who, by the way, I ran against because he was a corrupt thug back then, but you thought he was the greatest in the world, and you said he should be president of the United States of America.
I endorsed you over him.
Really? You didn't do anything?
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Just make this stuff up as we go along, I guess.
We're going to move on. Next
oh,
topic
boy.
Here. Mr. Zeldin, when President Trump's appointees to the Supreme Court were questioned during their confirmation hearings about Roe v. Wade.
Oh, and they're going to talk about abortion. You know, again, really. Let's see what Lee Zeldin wants to do. I'm just curious, and then we'll go from there.
That there should be informed consent. I believe that we should be doing more to promote adoption. And what I found, even though I'm pro-life, is that a lot of people who consider themselves to be pro-choice agree with me. My daughters, they were born in the second trimester. They were less than 1.5 pounds when they were born, 14.5 weeks early. I had a chance to see life in the second trimester, and it was beautiful. Thank God they had the opportunity to survive and thrive. They're in all honors classes, getting better grades than I did when I was their age. We need to be promoting family. And I believe that right now New York's law is going too far when you start allowing late-term partial birth abortion.
Mr. Giuliani, if you're elected governor...
Well, I do believe that late-term abortion should be off the table. That's just going too far. And I even have a couple of my friends who are Democrats who were even questioning Cuomo's choice when he approved that law. And they were thinking, you're having an abortion a few weeks before you're giving birth. Why are you doing this? The baby is due, and... You know, I've had one liberal friend who I've known all my life was disheartened with Cuomo's decision when he approved that law. So, trust me, it's something that, you know, a woman should have a right to choose. I've openly said that. Again, I've gone the record. I've marched for women's rights in New York City back in 2017. And, you know, when Trump and Pence were threatening abortion rights, you know, I had to go against what I believe in. And all I'm going to say is, at the recording of this video, as of this moment, the Supreme Court has yet to rule on Roe v. Wade. And, you know, let me put it better still, because I don't want to show Harry Wilson's face, all right? He's somebody who shouldn't even be on the stage. He's a private citizen who... nobody even knows. Were you a state senator? Were you a state assemblyman? Did you hold any local office before this? Were you in the federal government? Were you the baby of a former mayor of New York City? No. So you really don't belong on this stage. Not really. No. Right, Harry Wilson? But again, I will mention, we don't have a decision on Roe v. Wade yet. And I am very worried that once the Supreme Court does overturn Roe v. Wade, and this is a real possibility because next week I am traveling to the Delmarva Peninsula for the first time since 2019, I will mention that there is a real possibility we may have a March for Abortion Rights on the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland, come before the 4th of July. I may consider standing with those people. I may consider it. It's her body, and it's her choice. But again, there should be regulations. I do believe that, you know, a private, you know, anybody in the private sector should not be doing that. I do believe that abortion should be covered by insurance. I've openly said that. And I will give credit to my Republican colleague in Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan, who I understand why he vetoed that bill earlier this month about, oh, well, we're going to not let somebody privately give an abortion, but I was a little bit disheartened when Governor Hogan didn't let insurance cover abortions. So, bottom line is, there should be regulations on abortion. I believe, again, if you are going to have a late-term abortion, that is a little bit unethical. I do agree with what Ryan Kemp did in Georgia, where if it's 6 months, the heartbeat bill made complete sense in Georgia. So, again, this is another narrative of CBS to distract us from the issues in this election right now. So, let's see what else was here. So, yes, so they are going to go talk about, you know, we should watch is the vaccine mandates. Then we'll go to congestion pricing, and then we'll wrap it up with the DA recall, because I really don't want to go through this whole video. So let's watch the part now where they talk about vaccine mandates. And this is a good segment. This is a very good segment right here.
To rehire city workers. And Mayor Adams has said repeatedly he's not going to do it. So how can you get these workers back on the city payroll if the mayor says absolutely not?
Well, I'm very well aware of negotiations between the governor of the state of New York and the mayor. I've seen it from the other side. And I must tell you, that's when you have to use your leverage. I also know that Mayor Adams went up to Albany recently, said he was going to get bail reform repealed, and came back with his tail between his legs. Look, it's all about going up to Albany and using the leverage necessary. That's why I've said with bail reform specifically, I would...
So, you heard that correctly, right? Eric Adams tried getting bail reform repealed, but you know Kathy Hochul, you know her reaction. Oh, sorry, Eric Adams, I'm just gonna put you off. So let's watch this part.
I would sit down on day one with the legislature and assembly and tell them it's my first priority. And then secondly, with regards to the mayor, what I would do, Marcia, I'm trying to answer the question over here. It's bad enough I'm in a different room because you guys have relegated me to this. Let me at least answer your question because I'm getting there on this. And frankly, I think this is a great example of the media continuing to be unfair against conservatives and acting more like Providence.
Thank you! This is what I've been trying to say since the beginning of this video. The fact that you have liberal media outlets like CBS, NBC, and ABC, and I think CBS is the worst of them in my honest opinion, next to ABC, who, by the way, ABC is part of the Walt Disney Company. So let's just mind that for a second. So, thank you, Andrew Giuliani, for at least disowning CBS, because that had to be said. And I know his dad was probably proud of him of that.
I just want to know how you could do it.
But I want to answer the question here. What I would do is, if the mayor does not rehire them and I will utilize my leverage, I will put them on the state payroll because it's so important. Right now, at a time when we have a nurse shortage, we have a healthcare worker shortage, it's absurd to think that
exactly.
by this health choice...
Why did my nursing home hold a job fair today? Thank you. Someone's making sense here, at least on this.
Decided to just fire these people arbitrarily. Look, we haven't considered natural immunity. We haven't given people this choice. The CDC director in January of this year actually said on CNN that the vaccination does not prevent transmission. So what are we doing here? Is this political theater just like January 6th, Marcia? I believe it is.
Mr. Giuliani, that your time is up. Mr. Wilson, your position on this. Would you, as governor...
I can't remember the question. Can you please go back to the question?
He says, Mr. Giuliani says that if he was elected, he would rehire all the people from New York City who had lost their jobs because they refused to get a vaccine. He says he can put them back on the city payroll or force the mayor to put them back on the city payroll, even though the mayor says he can't do it.
As governor, I'm going to focus on the things within my control as governor, and I would rehire state employees, but I'm not going to go beyond the purviews of the governor's office.
Mr. Astorino?
Well, let's start with this. What has happened to children over the last 2 years is completely unforgivable, with schools being closed because of these unscientific mandates. I mean, I watch the science and data from around the world, and we were reacting negatively here in New York, most of us, because we were being told, you got to wear your mask, you got to be vaccinated, or you can't participate in society. And by the way, 34,000 healthcare workers were fired. Now we have a healthcare crisis in New York. Governor Kathy Hochul made that decision, and she forced the healthcare crisis. So I know as governor,
actually, you can blame her predecessor as well, because before Cuomo resigned, he actually approved it. And then Hochul became the puppet that had to follow Andrew Mark Cuomo.
The employees back. But yes, I would demand to the mayor, as part of budget negotiations or any other negotiation, that they do hire them back with back pay and pension credits. I think that's very important because people's liberties have been taken away during this whole process.
Mr. Zeldin.
The state should offer the people who used to work for the city a job working for the state. On day one, all COVID mandates end. I've been long saying that as well. What you just heard from Never Trumper Harry Wilson was a bit ironic because he actually implemented a company policy that would fire any of his employees who refused to get the COVID shot. Now, I believe that it's important for every person who has been fired to be offered their jobs back with back pay. I don't believe the religious exemption should have gotten eliminated in 2019. That should come back. We shouldn't have had 2-year-olds, toddlers in masks. That was abusive and unscientific. And I don't believe anyone out there who wants to get a COVID shot should do it because the governor called on you to be her apostles. We're not looking to be ruled by an emperor governor. She actually went into church and told New Yorkers that that's why they should get it, to be my apostles. She referred to herself as the mother of all 62 counties. We need balance and common sense restored.
Exactly. Thank you. That's tyranny right there.
I need to respond. I need to rebut. Marcia, no, I need to rebut his misinformation.
Just 15 seconds,
I need more than 15 seconds. Mr. Zeldin has never had a private sector job, so he doesn't understand how businesses work. I ran a nursing home business. President Biden was introducing a vaccine mandate for all nursing home employees, and we had to deal with that. That's where 2/3 of our revenue came from, was Medicare and Medicaid, and that's exactly what we did. We did it safely and fairly, and we had incredible care for our patients. 40,000 employees and 20,000 patients that we took very close care of. And because of that experience, which Mr. Zeldin clearly does not even understand, when I'm governor, I will have a full investigation of Governor Cuomo and his misdeeds in the nursing home scandal and his directive. We will prosecute him and anyone else complicit to the fullest extent of the law, and we will make restitution to the families that were hurt by his bad policy.
Thank you. We're going to move on. We're going to move on. Next question.
You have the next question.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Zeldin, you had a news conference last week saying the state should cancel congestion pricing.
Something
If you're elected, how will you pay for the much-needed repairs
pricing
at the MTA? Are you suggesting higher fares, new taxes, or would you just leave the MTA as it is and potentially fall into a greater state of disrepair?
Yeah, and the false charge is just me. Actually, I started and operated my own firm, but putting that aside on the last one, I do oppose congestion pricing. I believe that it is unfair, that people are already struggling to afford to make ends meet, and I would do everything in my power to stop congestion pricing from being implemented. Kathy Hochul, when she was with you,
we do need congestion pricing. There was a Texas A&M study that came out in June of 2021. We beat out Los Angeles. Everybody knows my record on it. I spoke to board member Larry Schwartz about this in person back in July of 2021. I told Mr. Schwartz before he resigned from the MTA board, there's proof that Texas A&M ranked us worse than Los Angeles. I mean, isn't that alarming to think that New York City beat Los Angeles in congestion? Just today, for an example. As I'm going to work, the LIE in both directions by Francis Lewis Boulevard, congested. Congested. I mean, thank goodness I read an article, I think it was, I forget what website it was, but there was an article that said that if congestion pricing does go into effect, New Yorkers will leave the car behind because they know they don't want to pay with their wallets. So in order to help teach people a lesson, leave the car at home. All right, let us people who live in Queens, we don't want congestion going into Nassau County. We are sick and tired of it. The fact that the longer this congestion pricing, you know, it's hold off, the longer it gets put aside here. Nassau County is losing GDP from Queens because people in Queens have just given up and realized how bad the traffic has gotten. Because all these people from Manhattan have no business driving their car into Long Island.
She stated that she supported congestion pricing, and she's wrong. A decade ago, I wrote an op-ed where there was a new incoming MTA chairman where I outlined 10 different ways that we can make the MTA operate more efficiently. We still have those ways and others to make the MTA operate more efficiently, but if you want to get more revenue for the MTA, you need people to feel safe on it. If you have folks who don't feel safe on the subways and they're seeing the homeless and others with mental health issues, the crimes that are making front page headlines, you're not going to get the riders. So I think it's important that we make our subways, our streets, our businesses, our homes, all as safe as possible. People are fleeing and they're not riding mass transit, and that's one of the other key ways to help pay for it.
Thank you. Mr. Astorino, congestion pricing?
So, very good point by Lee Zeldin, at least talking about the crime. And I completely agree. You know, we have to address the crime. And by repealing bail reform, that's a good first step. But there's other ways that we have to address the crime in our subways right now. You know, it's not just, you know, the guns, but remember, people are getting pushed onto subway tracks. People are getting stabbed. You know, the fact that, again, the Democrats are just pushing their gun agenda on everyone, forcing it down our throats. You know, most of my friends in Long Island don't even want to hear about it right now, and I can't blame them. They don't want to be bombarded by Hochul, Swazi, and, well, most of them. Maybe there's like one or two friends in Nassau that I know who care about this gun, this war on gun thing, but most of my other friends in Long Island, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to have it shoved down their throats, hearing three liberals right now, one who claims to be a blue dog, one who's a stay woke Democrat, and another who's just a female version of Andrew Cuomo. So, there has to be other solutions than just attacking guns. You know? So let's see what Rob Astorino had to say about congestion pricing.
Thank you. Mr. Astorino, congestion pricing?
This year is going to be the revenge of the normal people. And I'll tell you why. Because congestion pricing is another backbreaker on the average New Yorker. It sounds so great, but you're going to charge $30 to go south of 60th Street when New York City is trying to get back on its feet. All this does is it crushes the outer boroughs, it crushes the middle class, and the elites.
It's actually not going to crush the outer boroughs, because it's actually going to help the LIE and Grand Central go back to its normal traffic patterns before everybody decided to get all these cars and all this overpopulation nonsense began. You know, the fact that a decade ago, or let's give a number, 15 years ago, on a normal Saturday afternoon in the summer, I would never have to worry about traffic on the Northern State trying to get into Long Island. So, you know what? Let's see what else Mr. Astorino had to say.
People will leave New York. We got to get rid of, like, red light cameras and speed cameras. All these are nickeling, diming people, and it's another reason to leave New York.
Well, he makes a good point, because guess who has the most traffic light cameras out of all counties in Long Island, in New York? And I brought up Long Island. When Steve Ballone became county executive, and any of my viewers in Suffolk, you need to be paying attention to this part. When Steve Ballone became your county executive, the fact that in Hauppauge and in Comac, for an example, especially Comac, the fact that they would put a red light camera at Jericho Turnpike and Comac Road was outrageous. Most people in the Comac Northport area didn't even want that camera. So Rob does make a good point right there.
So when I say it's going to be the revenge of the normal people, we are fed up with what the hell is going on in New York right now. And the only way to change it is to change course. And look, I did this in Westchester. I fixed our problems in Westchester County. We created jobs. We got back to normalcy. But nobody feels like they're being heard right now. And I will hear you because things are so bad, but they're going to get better. Help is on the way.
Mr. Giuliani, congestion pricing.
Well, let's be clear. Congestion pricing is a tax on hardworking New Yorkers. That's what it is. The same thing with speed and red light cameras. Look, if speed cameras existed exclusively in school zones during school hours, then that's something that I'd be willing to talk about. But you see in more and more conservative areas like Staten Island, like Southern Queens, more speed cameras that pop up than, honestly, in some of those blue areas right there. I think this is a tax not just on hardworking New Yorkers.
Actually, parts of
but I think it's a
Bayside are
tax
flipping
on
Republican
conservatives
right now.
here
He forgot
in
to
the five
mention
boroughs
that.
and in other counties around New York City and around the state, frankly, as well. So I would look at it this way, though. We continue to look at New York's rising budget, going from $135 billion back in 2010, now $220 billion. Let's take a look at a state that's thriving. Let's take a look at Florida at $98 billion, with 1 million more people than we do. And I think it's pretty obvious that the same old in Albany will not work. We're going to need a change agent to come in there to make budget cuts at least 10% across the board, except for our law enforcement.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, congestion pricing.
So I'm opposed to congestion pricing. And let me explain how my approach in general is different and how that affects the MTA specifically. So I'm not a politician. I'm a turnaround expert who spent 30 years fixing failed organizations. That applies to New York State.
All right, I think we're going to fast forward past this no-name Wilson guy because, you know. So I guess what we're going to do is fast forward to what Lee Zeldin had to say about Alvin Bragg, and then we'll wrap up this video.
Term limits, the name of the Tappan Zee Bridge is coming back. No more Cuomo. That's a term limit.
Mr. Zeldin, should there be a constitutional amendment to allow voters to remove local district attorneys?
Yeah, but that should be a vote that's in Manhattan. If you're going to fire the Manhattan district attorney, it shouldn't be. But I'm for a constitutional amendment.
Yes.
Statewide, you can remove your local DA.
I don't believe that statewide they should be voting to get rid of a county district attorney.
Should it be a law statewide that localities can remove their own DAs that they elected?
Yes, thank you.
But on
Someone's
day one,
making
as soon as
sense
I get
here.
sworn in, the first thing I'm going to do is going to fire Manhattan district attorney out.
The fact that last year, when Cuomo's sex scandal came out, the fact that in the state of New York, when I was doing my research and I said, is there a way we can recall Andrew Cuomo and then hold a special election last year? I did my research, and it turns out there was no recall law in New York. I was willing to leave my house last spring to get signatures to recall Andrew Cuomo. I was willing to do it. But because New York doesn't have that type of law right now, and we can't be like California, where they almost recalled Gavin Newsom last year, you know, Zeldin's making sense. And right now, as you're seeing in San Francisco, as you're seeing in Los Angeles right now, they are recalling their local DAs. Now, if let's say I wasn't happy with the job Melinda Katz was doing, then I would consider asking for a recall. But we have a DA here in Queens who's actually doing a pretty good damn job, I'm sorry if I misworded it right there, but I have a lot of good stuff to say about Melinda Katz right now. And we're very grateful in Queens to have somebody like her. Yes, okay, she's a Democrat. But listen, at least we have a common sense Democrat right now, compared to Alvin Bragg in terms of holding the law right now.
Alvin Bragg, he's refusing to enforce the law. Now, what Never Trumper Harry Wilson just didn't offer up the Republican voters out there, is talking about how he donated to the campaign of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, just like he didn't tell the voters of New York that he had a policy at his company to fire his employees who were unvaccinated, or that he was a two-time Obama advisor, or that he refused to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. He is lying to the people as if I voted to defund the police.
You did.
No, right now on TV, you're lying to people at home.
All right, so I think we've had enough of
making
this.
this
I don't even want to hear Andrew Giuliani's rebuttal. You know, it's not even going to matter now. So I think I've lost my patience with the other candidates. And, you know, I really hope if you're a Republican and you're watching this, please, you know, a lot's at stake in November. All right? I mean, we need to have Lee Zeldin as our nominee right now. We need Lee Zeldin to be our governor because he has the experience that we need. And remember, if you're voting for Lee Zeldin, because remember, early voting starts on Saturday. Now, again, I'm going to be voting early at St. John's University before I go to Maryland. But keep in mind that bottom line is, Zeldin has been around for us for a very long time. We should give him a chance. Let him do what he needs to do to help heal our state right now. Because we can't trust Rob, because Rob lost to Andrew Cuomo, and if we put him as the nominee, you know he's going to lose to Kathy Hochul. So let's put Rudy Giuliani's son in. Yeah, problem. He's never had any political experience before, so he's just the baby of Rudy. So let's just toss him aside. And no-name sheriff, that's what I'm going to call him. Problem, no one's going to vote for no-name sheriff, and Hochul will overwhelmingly get the vote in November. So, folks, if you're a Republican registered in New York right now, I urge you to please consider voting for Lee Zeldin. And also support Allison Esposito for Lieutenant Governor right now. So, I'm done here. I've lost my patience. I really hope there's not another debate, because it'll just be a waste of time. Why can't Lee Zeldin just debate Kathy Hochul already? Because I've just lost my patience. And I just wish this primary was over with already. So, that's it.